let's just start off. Introduce yourself as if I'm meeting you for the first time.
My name is Raz Simone. You want a description or just
Yeah, yeah,
a?
like a hip hop artist, or like yeah, just like
Got you.
tell me a little bit more who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Raz Simone. I'm a son. I'm a father. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm an artist. I sing. I produce. I direct films. I'm an entrepreneur. Invested I'm real estate investor. I'm a natural philanthropist, even when I don't want to be. I'm a human being.
That's awesome. So I understand. I'm talking to you now. This is Friday morning at 8 a.m. and you have not slept yet tonight, have you?
No, yeah, no. This
So
is
you've been out and about going to protests. How many protests have you been to so far?
Yeah, no, this is regular. About a day or so ago, I hadn't I hadn't been to sleep for about 3 or 4 days. So yes, this is regular. And then when I do sleep, we'll go to sleep for like an hour and a half or something like that, maybe a sleep cycle. Um, we've been out every single day, since since the since the first day, since when it happened. We were out for the last like 7 or so days. Um, yeah, we were out there when the first brick was thrown and first fire was set. We were out there for every single peaceful protest. Every single protest has been peaceful. So yeah, we've been out here.
And how many protests has that been so far?
I mean, it's really honestly one that's just been going on forever.
Mhm.
There's people out there right now, you know.
That's crazy. So before I move on, I want to see if so can you click that setting wheel next to your name and then there's a drop down. Right now you're under use browser settings. I'm just curious, what are your other options under your name? Are there other options?
Use browser settings, communications. Mm,
Click the communications thing. I'm just curious what it sounds like.
let's see. Phone array. I'm not sure what that is though. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it sounds the same. Let's see. Talk a little more.
Okay, can you hear me now? Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, just go back to the original one, the use browser setting. Yeah. I think it's probably the same thing.
Okay. Is it just a little muddy?
It's a little muddy, but I can fix that in post.
Okay, that
Um,
works.
so how would you describe the protest or protest so far for someone that hasn't been there? What has it been like just being on the ground?
Um, Being on the ground, it's been a bunch of peaceful humans who are upset about all the injustices that they've been seeing, and specifically towards Black people right now. So a bunch of upset humans that are peaceful. I've been on the front line, and every single time it has been police officers who have antagonized and then just started spraying and throwing bombs and throwing chemical warfare that's illegal, to use in military. When it comes to the Geneva Convention, they've been using it on humans, and they can't even use that legally on our enemies, our worst enemies. It's been like a battlefield. Feels like we're in uh, Libya or like Iraq or something like that, Afghanistan back in the day. It feels like something out of a movie, something that we usually only see in movies because we've had the privilege to not have, you know, war on our own soil, and so it feels like that. It's you're hearing explosions go off, your ears are ringing, you can't breathe because the gases, the chemical warfare that they're using on you. You can't see because of the chemical warfare they're using on you. They're spraying high-powered mace pepper spray that goes for 20 feet out and into your eyes, like when you're right there a few feet in front of them. Um, they are shooting you with rubber bullets and they're using them incorrectly because you're supposed to shoot rubber bullets onto the ground and then they ricochet up. And that's for when you're trying to stop someone that is trying to hurt another person, maybe in a prison setting, to stop a prison riot when people are trying to hurt each other, and shank each other with something, with a knife or something that you might try to use that to de-escalate in that type of a situation. But they're not. That's not what this is. No one was being violent. The only people that I've ever seen be violent at this I have been police officers, and they are supposed to shoot these rubber bullets at the ground, and they're supposed to bounce and then hit people again in other senses, but they're shooting them straight at people's faces. They're not bouncing them on anything. They're shooting them straight, and that is ridiculous. The propulsion that they have, the power that those rubber bullets come out at is not supposed to be used that close to people, and it's not supposed to go straight to them. It's supposed to hit the ground and then ricochet off. They are using it and spraying it straight into your face, even from a few feet away. The more brutal, the better for it seems like how they feel. I've seen people's faces get split open by rubber bullets. It's messed up. Somebody got brain damage, and he is never going to be the same because of one of the rubber bullets that these officers very unlawfully shot at his head and inhumanely shot at his head. So it's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of hope because we as a people have been through so much that nothing breaks us. This is not going to break us. So there's still a bunch of hope out here on the front lines, and people are tired of all this, but they're not tired. They're staying out there. People are coming out every day, and we're still waiting for all of our other brothers and sisters all from all colors and all creeds to come out and support. And we're still waiting for that. So interviews like this and interviews like everywhere else, that we appreciate that because it's getting the message out there. And the message is to come out of your house and hit the streets because this is not right, and we're not going to stop until this gets corrected. It's been 400 some years that these injustices have been happening, this disproportionate mess that has been bestowed upon people of a darker complexion, the oppression that is systematically focused on people of a darker complexion is not right. And we as human beings, as this one race, this human race, we are standing for each other, and we urge everyone else who is not a bigot to stand with us.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not sleeping at night. You know, you're staying up. You're being involved. But what are the thoughts that are also just keeping you awake at night?
I'm at peace. I'm always at peace. Um, I'm just not sleeping because there's so much to do, and there's so much to be done. There's so much that needs to be done. Right now, the thing that I'm thinking about is we don't have a trust in the system because the system was never give us a reason to trust them. Um, we as black people and we as people, period, if we're not a part of the 1%, there's no reason to trust the system. The system was made to screw us all. People say that the system is broken, but it's not really broken. It's doing exactly what it was made to do. It was made to oppress all of us. If you're not at the top, it's made to oppress you. It'll make you think that it's there for you. If you're white, but it's not even there for you, even if you're white. So it's the system that we don't have trust in. We will still use a diversity of tactics to to accomplish this goal. So we will still be pushing and putting out petitions, creating petitions, writing legislation, getting people into positions of power, getting representation. But at the same time, that's not enough. Our chief of police is a black woman, and this is still going on. Our mayor is a woman, and this is still going on. So representation is great, but it's still not enough. We need people that have empathy, and we also need this system to change completely or come all the way down because we have a system that is even oppressing the people that are there. Let's imagine that the chief of police, who is a black woman, and the mayor, who is a woman, do have empathy in their hearts. Then that shows us that the system is so messed up that they can't even do anything to make this better. That their hands are tied, or that they may die, or that they may be pushed out, or that they'll be silenced, or that it's just so much of it's just that there's so much of a puppet that they can't do anything, or they don't have that empathy, or the system has gotten to them. But either way you look at it, the system is an issue. Yeah, even when you look at actors who do character acting, they can get stuck in a role just from acting, just from reciting lines. They can get stuck in the role and become that character that they acted as. So when I try to empathize with the mayor and I try to empathize with the chief of police, I imagine that them being actors and thinking maybe they came in here with good hearts, but after a while it kind of gets to you, and then you just become that thing that you've been trying to blend in with. So the problem that we have is this system. And what is on my mind right now is solution. We hear all these issues and all these issues so much so that we turn off our phones, we turn off our TVs because we just hear problems and no solutions. And so I like to be a solution-based person. And the solution that I've found is making sure that we are capable, and with that, having our own police force. So having our own form of protection so that we can police ourselves. I don't want to be afraid that if my son, for whatever reason, has to call the police, that he has to be worried about getting shot dead. I do not want to be worried that if my grandma has to call the police because someone is trying to rob her or rape her, that she has to worry about the police coming and now throwing her on the ground and or sexually assaulting her or shooting her or shooting another family member that's there. All things that we have seen happen. I don't want any of the women in my life to worry about. Let's say that someone is following them down the street and they're worried that they might rape them. I don't want them to think and be like, oh, weigh out the options of, do I want to possibly get raped by this civilian or do I want to call and possibly get raped by a police officer? That's not okay. And these are all situations that we have seen happen. I just got a phone call with a lady who, it's about an hour and a half phone call, and she told me her story of sexual assault by an officer, and he did it in public, where in plain view, where her neighbors were watching him sexually assault her, and no one did anything because everyone is afraid of the police. They don't feel safe with the police. They feel afraid, and that's not okay. So what we're doing is we're creating our own police force for the people. Um, and our whole thing will be that we're holding ourselves to a higher standard, to a much higher standard. There to protect the people, for the people, not to protect the property, but to protect the people. Um, there to, now here's a phone number that you can call. We're working on a whole call center. We got our own call center software, and we're working on a whole call center where we'll be able to call this number, put it on speed dial, because for now we will not be able to take over 911. So you'll put it on speed dial, and when you call, you have someone that is there for you to come, who has training in de-escalation, who has training in mediation, who has already been through empathy tests to make sure that they have empathy, who has been through tests to make sure that they are not a bigot in any way, that they are not homophobic, that they are not racist, that they are not misogynistic, to make sure that these people are more than qualified, and we will have ongoing training and ongoing education and classes and courses that they will have to take. And we will be working with different organizations that already exist for them to have courses that they already have, or things that they will create with this in mind, and that these officers have to go through. So the officers will know that a big portion of their time will just be going through training courses, going to meetings, showing up, being there, speaking with the people that they serve. And that is not just black people or the least of these or that. It's everyone that they serve. They will be going, they will be speaking, because these are the people's police. These are the people's protection. So it's the Seattle People's Protection. That's what we're calling it for now. And that's what it's all about. It's the people, all of the people.
So you've been speaking at protests, and last weekend you actually helped kind of moderate a conversation between the Bellevue police chief and a crowd of protesters. And then here at this point, I'm going to bring up a clip of that conversation. Tell me more about that conversation and the message you wanted to get across.
Yeah, the message that, I guess the energy that I wanted to set was an energy of communication and dialogue. We shouted, we rose our voices. Some of us broke things that, in the past, burnt things in the past. We did enough to get people to finally come down and listen. They finally came out of their offices and finally came out to the streets. And I do want to applaud the chief of police in Bellevue for coming out. Um, he didn't take much coaxing to come out. He came out, whereas a lot of these other people do not come out of their hiding, do not come out of their bunkers or their offices. And he came out and he wanted to speak. He took a knee and he said, he said Black Lives Matter. He took a knee and he said that that was wrong what they did, and we do not stand for that. And he sounded very genuine. He sounded very genuine. I overheard him say this, like he whispered into someone's ear, but I overheard he say that his wife is Mexican, and so not saying that that makes everything right, but I feel like he did have some empathy in him, and it did seem very genuine. Some of his, some of the police on his force actually started crying. So it was one of those things where I wanted the crowd to see that this does not mean that everything's great. We're pacified, we're good guys. No, this just means that these guys are not RoboCops. They're not invincible. They bleed like us. They cry like us. There are people inside of there, and you need to recognize that for multiple reasons. To keep that hope, to make sure that you know that they're not just some powerhouse that's more powerful than you. To also keep that hope that they can also turn. Their hearts can be turned. Their hearts can be turned, and some of their hearts are good, and some of them are in a horrible system that they don't want to be in, but they made an oath and they're trying, but they can't create much change at all. I have seen a couple officers who have tried to do everything in their power to be the good guy, and I've seen a lot more of that happen. But it was just one of those things where we did the yelling, we got people to come out, and now instead of yelling at his face, let's hear what he has to say, and let's open up this dialogue, and let's get him to say some things on camera so we can hold him accountable. And that was what the energy was and what my mindset was there. And so I pushed to the crowd to say, let's open this dialogue up and let's hear what he has to say. If we shout over him, we won't have anything to hold him accountable for. So let's hear what he has to say. This doesn't mean that everything's perfect. We're having to talk with the police and the world is better now. No, this means that we have different points that we can hold him accountable for, and we can listen to his words. Then we can go and cite any kind of facts that he's telling us, quote unquote, and we can go and check those and Google them. We can look all over it and check statistics and see if what he's saying to us is true. And then the things that he tells us about change and what he's going to do, we can hold him accountable for that. And then we can also follow up with that and pay attention to his actions. So we'll listen to his words just to listen to them so we understand where he's coming from. We gain some understanding, and then we follow and watch his actions and see if they line up. And if they line up, then that's solid. And we can rock with that. And if they don't, then we go back to the drawing board. And what we don't
Yeah.
put the power into his hands, the power is in the people's hands. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what that was. And I felt like it actually it went well.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Roz Simone. So, you're also a musician,
Oh,
and I'm curious.
it's Raz Simone, Raz, like a
Raz,
raspy
thank
voice.
you. Thank you.
It's
Sometimes I
not
like
so eloquent.
sometimes I know it in my head, and then I like look at a name on a paper and then I just totally botch it. Thank you,
No, I
Raz.
feel like me too.
So I'm speaking with Raz Simone, and you are also, you're a musician, and I'm curious, do you have certain songs that come top to mind, that are your songs that address this issue of violence against African Americans?
I do. Actually, it just dropped the video. Did it drop right now? Just dropped the video about 5 minutes ago while we were on this live. And it's a new song, and that definitely addresses it very, very directly. It's called "They Don't Understand," and I just hit YouTube right now. So after you guys are done, checking this out, you can definitely go check that out. Um, you know, it just goes over. The thing is that it's such a complex issue that most people just stop listening when you try and have a discussion about it. Uh, there were literal barrels of guns and ammunition and drugs that were brought into our communities. That some of our OGs in our communities were there and witnessed. That they brought these in and just dropped them off. Very peculiar things like that. There's been many and many a time that the CIA has worked with gangs undercover for decades, undercover, just bringing in drugs and bringing in drugs. And it's like they try to make it seem like they're doing some deep undercover thing that they're gonna bust something when actually they were the plugs. They were the ones that were they were the plug. We wouldn't have had any of that if it wasn't for them. And that's something that people don't want to address. It seems like they don't understand that, or like it's folklore, but it's not. Like, what is your purpose? You're here. You can, if you wanted to bust drug dealers of that caliber, you could just do that like that. But you are the ones bringing this in. And then what did they do? They demonized the drugs and the drug dealers, and they created a war on drugs. You look at all these presidents: Bill Clinton, ridiculous war on drugs; Reagan, ridiculous war on drugs; Nixon, ridiculous war on drugs. All of these guys pushed a line on that, and that's when they created a narrative. And they said, they started calling, instead of calling these little children, these children of color, instead of calling them that, they started calling them little thugs, and they started calling them terrorists and thugs, and there's some other words that they used, and they kept on using those words to just demonize them so much, to make it so that people were so scared of them. In my song, there I put a blurb that was Hillary Clinton speaking, and saying they're no longer kids anymore. They're what was the word that they said? But it's pretty much something that's they're no longer kids
Like
anymore.
super predators.
The super predators. There we go. Thank you. They're no longer kids anymore. They're super predators. All of these scary words that they were sending out into the community. And what's so sad is that not only did foreign white communities in the suburbs, of course, buy into this because it's on the news. The news is that's where we go to get our information. We didn't have Google. We didn't have social media. We literally only go to the news to see what's happening anywhere else but our city. And so of course, they ate it up. They believed it. They've already watched all these movies with black people being dubbed as criminals and wild and loud and all these different things and violent. So then when they see that on the news, they've never met a black person in their life. Of course, that's what they believe, and they run with it. But the even scarier part, and this is a quote from someone on it's documentary the 13th, but the even scarier part is that a lot of the black community bought into this. A lot of our mothers and grandmothers bought into this. They watched the news, and they did just like everyone does when they watch the news for too long. They got scared. They got paranoid. They started believing everything that they're hearing. And they're like, man, crime is so messed up. But we're better than that. These thugs out here, these other black thugs, they're giving us a bad name. And there's so much of that was going on in the community. And then you have this other divide, and people are really buying into that and believing that. When like my neighborhood has a great history. We recognize and we remember every time. We remember when the guns were brought in. And we remember that before that, we weren't doing that. Before that, the gang, quote unquote, the organization that I'm a part of, the block that I'm a part of, was a dance crew. And almost every Seattle gang, whether it's Duce, D-Dub, whatever, was a dance crew. Even these older ones that have a rich history in the community, they were dance crews. They would get together, and if they had any kind of beef, they would dance it out, literally. And then, after this narrative got spun, and it kept on getting spun more and more and more, and it also got spun through the music because they used that as a vehicle, but they already had all of this going on. And after that got spun, there's a thing called COINTELPRO. My little brother, his uncle, was actually a part of it, and so he was a traitor to our community. And what he did was he went in as an infiltrator, and his mission was to create dissension within black groups. So they had to go in and they wanted to create dissension within the Black Panthers, create dissension within the Bloods, create dissension within the Crips, and so on and so forth, all these different organizations. And so all of this has been very planned to rip people apart and tear them apart. It didn't just happen. It didn't just come about. And so when that started happening, they waged war with us in that way, in a very covert way, and also spreading propaganda through our media sources. Then that's when you started seeing people start fighting with their fists, and people were fighting, and it was like now you had to kind of hold up to the standard that you saw in the media and the standard that they are pushing for us, that you have to be this strong, ready to fight, black man, and all that. And so now that started happening. And then it wasn't until they brought the guns in, because where are we going to get guns from? We don't have connections with any kind of people overseas to get guns, and that wasn't even a thought. So once the government brought the guns in for us and the communities, then after a while, we started shooting at each other, and it was just all written out there. It went exactly as planned as it had it. You know, things don't just happen. You have to think, how did that happen? You have so many other countries that don't have these issues. There's so many countries. I've traveled to dozens and dozens of countries, and they don't have these issues. A lot of them don't have guns like that. They don't, and if they do, yeah, they do, but they're, you know, for hunting and for this and for that and for different purposes. But they're not. Their thought is not to take these guns and let's use them against ourselves. Like, that's something that you have to plan out very very detailed to get these results that you want, and that's what the government did, and that bled into the suburbs and bled into everywhere, and now it's negatively affected all of us. There's a bunch of white on white crime. You know, that's the numbers are high. Black on black crime high. Like all these numbers are high now because we had a government that cared about property and money way more than the people that live in it. And so we're here again. We're here still, and we continue to be here until we change that.
And what kind of role do you see music playing just to be able to spread a message? Like what role does music play in that?
It plays a lot. Yeah, music sets a stage. It sets a tone. It changes energy completely. You can walk into a room and play a song, and the whole energy changes. You can walk into a room and kill the vibe by playing the wrong song. You can bring it about. You can get everyone excited by playing the right song. You can bring about nostalgia by playing a song that everyone remembers. Like, oh my goodness, this is my jam. You know, you can bring about tears, laughter, you know, all kinds of romance. How many babies have been made to certain songs? You know, music is almost a form of hypnotism. Honestly, you get mesmerized by the pace of it. You know, one of the biggest things about hypnotism is rhythm, and so there's a lot of that going on, and I feel like that's what happens a lot with is music that you don't have to pay attention to, that you can just listen. People start getting hypnotized because it just goes like this. You just nod, nod, nod. Same beat every 4 bars. It's not much of a difference at all, and people just get hypnotized by it. So music plays a very important part. It can do a lot of beauty and can birth amazing things and bring about crazy ideas and again set crazy amazing energy for a room or for a whole world, or it can do mass major destruction. Um, so yeah, it's there's the duality of it. It can do a lot. It can definitely do a lot. It's we've been doing this for a long time. My native brothers and sisters, my African brothers and sisters, and so on and so forth, have been using music at war. You know, we have all these battle songs and war cries and all that stuff. Tonight when we were out tonight and this morning when we were out and marching with thousands of people in the middle of the streets. Um, I had this brother. I let him get on the mic, and he's from Gambia, and he started leading us in a war song, and so we started singing the war song with him. You know, this has been going on for a long time. People have recognized the energy that music has, and that it plays in times like this or any times. Honestly, it's a tool. It can be weaponized, and it can be weaponized, or it can be a tool.
That's beautifully said. So I think these are all my questions. My last question is, I want to be able to use a song. Well, I'll definitely use something with the latest song that you just dropped for the video. But I'm curious if there's just two more songs that you have that maybe I can use as an intro or another as an outro that you feel like would be really fitting to play right now. I'm just curious what your suggestions would be.
Mob is definitely one right there. That touches on this as well. Yeah, you should definitely check that out and listen to the verses and the chorus on that. That definitely touches on this. Um, Let me see what's another one that I feel there's so many. So I don't want to lead you astray. I may have to text you one, like, or send you an email with one
Oh,
later
that's fine. Yeah. Okay,
because there's a lot
awesome.
of them. So
Yeah. All right. Well, Rasamel, thank you so much for chatting today, and get some sleep eventually. Take care of yourself, and hope for the best, for the future.
thank you, appreciate you.
All right, thanks again so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and we'll be seeing you out at the protest.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I gotta. It's been an interesting week. I've been like literally in the middle of a move right now.
I feel. I feel.
But yeah, yeah,
Well, you're
definitely want
doing
to get
some
out there.
work, so I appreciate you doing the work. You know, we all have
Yeah,
different roles at different times, but it would be super dope to see you out there as well.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And then you just the way you kind of hang up is just closing out of the tab in your browser, and that's it.
Most definitely appreciate. Oh, and this one thing too. I've been talking a lot. I was curious. How do you feel about what's going on right now?
In terms of, I mean, I think it's a long time coming, and I think that people are finally starting to react differently.
Yeah.
Like I just think about KEXP. Like we've just had so many really intense conversations this week with just our staff. And like realizing that KEXP is a white-led organization and the problems that come with that. And I feel like all of this has made people think very deeply. And I think that this is like a really big shift and change um, that, you know, is going to have longer term implications. I'm just thinking about KEXP in general through all this, but I just feel like also it's making people think differently, and we're also at a point where we can reflect in a different way, because a lot of us are home right now and we're not having to do the usual grind. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a long time coming, and I feel like it's also been really empowering for a lot of folks, but also allowing people to have their voices heard, not just in the protests, but I feel like in everyday life, just based on the conversations I've had with coworkers at the station and like being in, meetings of 70 people with the highest people in the organization there and having like, our POC colleagues like speaking out for the first time and feeling like they can for the first time. So that's been also really cool to see.
Wow. Wow. I appreciate that word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you much.
So, yeah, thanks for your work, and yeah.
Well, thank you for yours, and thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time amid what I know is a very very crazy time.
No, most definitely, most definitely.
Awesome.
Got you. And you said, how do we hang up? I'm not even.
Oh, you just click
Close
out
the
of the
browser.
tab.
Got
Yep,
you.
yep,
Got
close.
you.
Yep, close the tab. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Well, have an amazing day.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
My. Hey, go check that video. We just dropped it on YouTube. Go check it out. It's they don't understand. Get off this live. Get off this live now. Go to YouTube. Raz Simone. They don't understand. Go check that out and let me know how the fuck you feel about that. And yes, they definitely need to start reaching out to people of color and hiring more people of color for sure. And we'll check them on that more too. That's the thing. We're holding everybody accountable. Everyone is being held accountable. Everyone's in the middle of the street saying we need to hold the police accountable. We need to hold the mayor accountable. We need to hold these people. We need to hold everyone accountable. Everyone needs to be accountable. We need representation. All of our communities need representation. Black people, trans people, women, everyone that's been oppressed. We need to pull out our statistics and be like, okay, who's been the most oppressed and who's been the most silenced right now? Let's fix this. Statistically, your company should look a little more like the people that it serves. We should break this all the way down and bring our people in, all of our people. The people have spoken. The people need change. That's what we need. And it needs to be real, and it needs to be accountability all the way up the ladder. It can't be that KEXP is hitting us up and saying, yeah, man, the president sucks. See, what he's doing is wrong. And they're not checking themselves. It can't be that the Seattle Times is telling us that, yeah, this is so bad what SPD is doing, and they're throwing SPD under the rug, but they're not checking themselves. Everyone needs to check themselves before they get held accountable by us, the people. We need to be on everyone's ass. Stay on their neck like they stayed on George Floyd's neck. You understand me? The man changed. Yeah, that's what it is. Go check that video though, and keep that passion, keep that anger, whatever it is. I'm not an angry person, so I'm passionate as fuck. I was angry when I saw them push over that old dude today. You can see it on my Instagram. They pushed this old dude over. The police pushed this old dude over, bulldozed over him, and then he started bleeding out of his ears. Old white dude. You can tell like he's one of those ones where you're like, oh, don't fall. Just pushed him over. He started bleeding out of his ears, and they didn't even help him. One officer went to almost kind of help him or do something. I don't know. He almost looked like he was trying to jump on him to handcuff him or something. And then another officer pulled him back, but they didn't give a fuck. And then they started pressing, a protester that was trying to help him out. Like, this is not right. We're not standing for this anymore. None of it is right. And it doesn't matter. That was an old white dude. He was an ally, I'm sure. But that was an old white dude. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. They don't understand, and they don't give a fuck about us. Any of us. Even my super white right wing brothers and sisters that are misled. They do not give a fuck about you. You think they give a fuck about your redneck ass? No, they don't. And I say that because a lot of you guys are like, I'm proud to be a redneck. And shit, I'm proud for you. But they don't give a fuck about you either. They look at you like white trash. The quicker that you can understand that, the quicker that we can all get on and start getting the things that we need. You understand me? They ain't do shit for you. They don't do shit for us. They don't give a fuck about any of us. You understand me? They don't understand. So go tap in, go watch that video and get pumped the fuck up. Fuck this shit. Bye.